Phenomenal challenges. Phenomenal story. Next on Ryan Shazier's 50 Phenoms. From major setbacks to amazing comebacks.
It was a tumor that was actually causing my esophagus to have tightened up to the point I wasn't able to swallow.
In this episode of 50 Phenoms, Ryan Shazier talks with avid golfer Joe Aigner.
And he said the same thing, "You're laughing." And I'm like, I don't know what else to do. It's either laugh or cry, you know. I was crying this morning when I hit the floor.
I felt the same way for me, and I think that positivity and that goal mindset really helps a lot of people get better every single day.
Hear how he found the motivation to overcome esophageal cancer, quadruple bypass heart surgery, gout, shingles, and back surgery, all in the same year.
How you doing, Joe?
Great. Nice to meet you. Thank you so much.
Nice to meet you also. Thank you so much for coming on and
appreciate that.
Sharing your story with us. So, can you tell me everything that happened on July 4th?
July 4th, 2010, we went to a family gathering, just having steak with the barbecue. Had taken my first bite and swallowed, and it just didn't seem like it was going down. I took a drink, still didn't seem like it was going down. Brought it to my wife's attention, and she's an ER nurse, so she did kind of come up with, what's going on, and determined that I would need to go to the hospital. There was something happening. Still, I just felt that maybe I swallowed wrong or something. You never want to think the worst, of course.
It was the cooking.
Exactly.
The cooking.
And we got there, and they said, we're gonna have to put you through a number of tests and what have you. Initially, because I was having pain in my chest from trying to really cough it up, they started looking at from a cardiac standpoint. And then after some different scans and what have you, said that I would need an endoscopy for them to look. The next day they did that on July 5th and determined that it was a tumor that was actually causing my esophagus to have tightened up to the point I wasn't able to swallow. And that's a life-changing experience right there, when anybody tells you you have cancer.
Right.
And that's when I was fortunate to have my wife in the field, and for her to be such attentive to the details of finding out what type of cancer it is, who do we need to look at, surgeon, oncologist, and we found that Dr. Lukic, kind of the starsel of the esophageal cancer situation. And his issue was he was leaving for sabbatical at the time. It really took a lot on her part of diligence to finally get us an appointment, and we were able to get in there. He determined that I would need to be put on a feeding tube, which ended up being for almost a year.
How long from after you finding out you had throat cancer, I think on July 5th, till the doctor telling you needed a feeding tube, how long of a process was that?
Fortunately, that was only a matter of a week. We were very fortunate, and due to her diligence in getting the appointment set, you really need a team. There's no I in team, and there really isn't.
Yeah.
You need family to help you out. And then once you get there, the doctors that you need, it's a team of doctors. I mean, from the oncologist to the surgeons, the radiology department, they determined I would go through a brunt of radiation 28 days along with the chemo. And then they would retake another PET scan. And that PET scan initially, along with the endoscope, is what determined that I had the tumor. Cancer cells had expanded into my lymph nodes in my chest and going up my neck, and there's a scar behind here. They did those surgeries to try to see if they could get those lymph nodes out of my neck before they progressed to my brain.
So you had first found out that you had esophageal cancer, and then you had another PET scan and found out that you had lymph nodes continue to progress?
Right.
Did you have to have another surgery for that?
They were going to initially do them both at the same time, but then they realized that it had progressed so far. Dr. Lukic actually stopped the surgery and came to my wife, said that we need to stop, with your permission, go for more radiation and more chemo to try to curtail this.
So when the doctor told you that, what was the thoughts that you had in your mind? What were you thinking?
To regress a moment, so I have a 4-year-old, it was like, whatever you need me to do, you just tell me.
Right.
I have a 4-year-old, I'm not gonna leave her, it just isn't gonna happen. And he agreed. He said, I understand where you're coming from, but you gotta understand that you need to get your affairs in order because you have stage 4 cancer. But but we'll do everything we can, and we have very good outcomes from it, but it's going to take a lot of perseverance on your part.
I kind of know where you're coming from. I didn't have cancer. My son is 5 now, and this happened 2 years ago, so my son was 3, like your daughter, and they told me I'll never walk again. They were saying just for a chance for you to walk, it'll take a lot of resilience, a lot of perseverance. You just got to trust the process and continue to push every day.
Right.
You know, those are some things that you never want to hear, especially when you have a 3-year-old or you're feeling like you're healthy. You know, every day you're feeling like nothing wrong with you. It can't be me.
Right.
Just to know that you're going through that process and your kids are there with you and they're seeing everything that you're going through, that probably was some motivation for you to keep pushing.
Oh, it was. I mean, because she didn't really understand what was going on. You're still just dad, you know, and they come and expect you to do all the things that you were doing before, picking them up. I couldn't do that anymore because I had a feeding tube in. They said, you know, you can't lift anything. As soon as I'd sit down, she'd be next to me in my arms. It was just knowing that I couldn't do that right now, which was a bit devastating to me, of course. That gives you the inspiration that you need to persevere and move forward. I mean, I'm sure like your rehab, it was far from pleasant.
Yeah, far from.
And there's nobody that enjoys chemo and radiation. The first one you go, oh, I can deal with this. You just don't realize that's just a small dose. And then once it starts to build in your system, it kind of gets a little more restrictive, so to speak. And then that's kind of when the side effects start to take place.
So I know after dealing with weeks of chemo and then finding out you have to actually get more radiation, how did it affect you just knowing that that wasn't your last step, it was more coming? You
keep going through the process and they keep giving you the outline of where you need to go, and you know, this is where we're moving next, and then you end up with some setbacks. This due to all of a sudden, you know, I had a PET scan done again after that initial one, and they found out that none of it worked. The tumor didn't go down, it didn't shrink. Dr. Friedland in oncology sat down with us, and my wife being a nurse, you know, she quizzes everybody, you know, and she kept diligent records. She wrote everything down. So she wanted to know what this new cocktail actually entailed. And he was like, well, it has platinum in it and this and that. And he started into it, and she's diligently writing everything down. And he said, you know what, you're not going to be able to Google this. This is a new cocktail. We have nothing to lose, and we're going to give it a shot. We tried that along with some additional radiation. After another 8 weeks, a definite reduction in the size. It was working in the right direction, and everything started turning in my direction from that aspect. But then, unfortunately, now you've had so much chemo and radiation, the side effects start to happen. I got out of bed the one morning and I hit the floor, and I could hardly stand up. I looked down and my feet are swollen. My wife being a nurse, I always tease her about tucking in the corners of the sheets all the time, and they're so tight I couldn't get my feet out. And she looks at him, she's like, it had nothing to do with my sheets. You know, you have the gout. And I was like, what is the gout? I couldn't even fit my feet in my shoes. She had to go and buy me larger shoes just to get down to the hospital. And he said, you know, we took some blood work, and she told me on the way down, you know, there's prescriptions that you can take that'll reduce that swelling and everything. So I was all set for that. It was like anything to make his pain go away. And Dr. Friedland goes, yep, we have all that, but we can't give it to you. When you're on chemo, we can't give you any of those type of drugs.
So what was your thought process?
It just starts to get to the point you have to laugh. You have to move through it. And he said the same thing, you're laughing. And I'm like, I don't know what else to do. It's either laugh or cry, you know. I was crying this morning when I hit the floor. You just sit there and go, well, it's just another day. We got to just keep moving on. Started getting through that, and probably about 3 weeks later, same type of deal. Wake up in the morning, my back's really bothering me. Show it to my wife, and she says, I think you have shingles. Another wonderful side effect of possibly from the chemo, because I wasn't around anybody or anything that had it. Went down again, they said, you know, we can't give you anything for it.
So dealing with all this pain, how are you able to continue to fight through it? Because I know that you're dealing with the chemo and you're trying to fight off the cancer, but you were dealing with a lot of pain and you couldn't even do nothing about it. How were you able to continue to just push?
You just have to see the light to say, you know, hey, it's going to get better. I'm going to walk again, fight through this. You know, now she's 4 years old. I can't just lay down and succumb to this. When you're just sitting down and the blood's not moving, it takes longer for you to heal and what have you. The more you move, the more your body wants to heal. I would drive my wife crazy at times. She would come home from work and it's like I was stir crazy. You know, I had walked around outside and I want to get out and go around and see somebody, go to the store, go to the mall and walk around a little bit. And at times, you know, because you're on chemo, you shouldn't be around other people. They check your blood counts and everything. It's like, well, I'll stay away from them, you know, just take me for a ride. You know, type deal. You got to have those little short-term goals. I got to get dressed every morning. I can't sit around in pajamas all the time. That's what I would do. Every day I had a goal that I was going to get in the shower. I was going to get dressed. When I went to chemo, I put my dress clothes on. I had khakis on, my polo button-down shirt. And a lot of times people didn't even realize that I was a patient. I would go into a treatment area. They would step in and say, can I help you? And it's like, I'm the patient that's in here. Oh, okay. And then they'd look for my band on my wrist. That was my way of kind of overcoming what I was going through. If I just tried to progress it like every other day, and this was my job was getting through this cancer and the other side effects that come along the way.
That's amazing because with myself, I had short-term goals and I used to call them first downs. So every time I get a first down, I would achieve a goal or make a step or just stand up. I'll call that, oh, this is another first down because I'm a football player.
That's
so
right.
Try to relate things back to what's comfortable to me, you know?
Right.
So like to you felt getting dressed and just being professional every day was a goal for you to get through chemo. I felt the same way for me, and I think that positivity and that goal mindset really helps a lot of people get better every single day. I think that really will help you out a lot.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, being in business and being always structured to be goal-oriented and looking at what's my next objective, be it sales or what have you, my sales staff, what's our projections and whatnot. That mindset of, you know, just keeping the ball rolling. As they always say, if you don't grow, you die, you know, type deal. And if I'm not moving, I'm not growing. So it's kind of where I was at in my mindset overall.
That's amazing. So after having the shingles and overcoming that, were there any more setbacks that you had to deal with?
So finally, we were to the point of surgery. And they said, well, we think we should do a stress test. The doctor kind of looked at me. I was ready. He's like, well, we could get you set up for, let's say, Monday. We could get you in on Wednesday. I'm like, I'm in. You know, I'm ready to get this over with. So he said, well, we should maybe do a stress test, but how you feeling? I feel great. I'm ready to go. Dr. Lukatage nurse, Amy McBroom, he was kind of tied up with some other things, and she come in, and UPMC is just amazing with their appointments. You don't leave an appointment until you have your questions answered. Sometimes it extends the appointments, you know, to get in there, but at least when you leave, you definitely feel, it's not like you're going to the dentist by any means, you know, this is your life, you know. And Amy was just adamant about it. So I have it scheduled. I was like, oh man, because that moved back surgery until they got the results. Okay, so she made it for the next day. I go in, I'm on the treadmill. As you know, we're just trekking along. I have one at home, no problems. I didn't think nothing of it. Well, they do the nuclear side of it, went in, did that, and come back out, and we're talking and everything. I come out, I thought I was, you know, good to go. And the doctor stepped out, and my wife knew him, Dr. Addisy, and he said, you know, I'm gonna need to talk to you both. Then he took us in, and he says, Joe, you're gonna need 4 heart bypasses, like today. We don't really know how you're standing here right now. Your blockages are so severe. So severe, we're gonna take you by ambulance to Presby. I've already called Dr. Gleason, he's waiting for you. That was another one of those moments that you start to reflect again. It was like, really? Sitting down with Dr. Gleason the following morning, and then he said the same thing. Well, 4 heart bypasses, you kind of need to get your life in order again. And I'm like thinking in my head, I'm kind of getting tired of hearing this again. He said, there's great outcomes. You didn't have any issues. I wasn't short of breath. This was just a routine stress test. Initially, I was supposed to go in the next day for surgery, but it was Friday. He said, you guys were involved in some games that Sunday, being the Steelers, and he says, you don't want to be here for the Steeler game. You'd rather be home. And I'm like, absolutely. So he's like, well, why don't you go home, come back Monday afternoon and we'll do the heart surgery. I'm like, I'm all in. I call my wife up and she's like, I don't think so. Put him on the phone. You're not coming home. But he convinced her and let me come home. So then I was back here on Monday, had surgery, and walked out Thursday. To have 4 heart bypasses and to walk out of there basically 3 days later is just a testament to UPMC and their staff. Dr. Gleason is amazing. There again, he's like, Joe, the only way you're gonna get out of here is you have to show me. You have to walk up that hall. There's a dry erase board at the end, and you put a check next to your name every time you walk up and back, and up and back. So there was 10 check marks. So I'd go up and back, I'd come back in, go up and back. I'd do 10, I'd go up, I'd erase them, and then I'd do circles.
Yeah.
And I'd do X's. So then the nurses were harassing me for wearing the wax off the floor, But I was determined. The drains were starting to overcome, and the blood was actually coming out, unbeknownst to me, running down my leg and out onto the floors. I was walking the one time and they stopped me. They're like, you know what?
You need to calm down.
To get back in your room. So they made a point of telling him that, he says, he walking? Oh, he walks more than anybody we know. He walks up and down these halls more than us. But I was determined to walk out of there. And because the only way was to get through this surgery, to get the tumor out. And having your chest wired back together and everything. And the one evening, the one doctor came in, I was talking to him about the surgeries. He said, do you have any questions about what's coming up? And I said, well, I think I've experienced the hardest one. He goes, oh no. He says, having heart surgery, he's been hit by a truck. He says, when you have the esophagectomy, it'll be being hit by a freight train. He says, you wanted to know. I'm like, I would rather know, so I know where, from the esophagectomy that I would be in an induced coma for 2 days afterwards, because they would have to deflate my lung. Yeah. And take out one of my ribs to be able to go in and take the tumor out. From that surgery, it was 30 days later for them to do the actual esophagectomy.
Can you tell me about your support system and who was it?
Absolutely. Basically a team. My wife is an amazing coach and patient advocate. She was the one that really put together the team that I needed in the way of having a surgeon, being Dr. Lukic. He has led the esophageal cancer, new surgery techniques and what have you, along with Dr. Friedland. And then from my family, my brother, Rich and Sue, my sister-in-law, my friends, Mark and Debbie, David, Daryl, Mike and Joyce. Yeah, everybody kind of steps in, because we had a 4-year-old. We needed someone to help out there, keep an eye on her when I was at 28 days of radiation. First run was 12 weeks of chemo. You have to be there 3 days a week, and it's hours each time you go. It makes it very difficult if you didn't have a great family and friends. As they always say, there's no I in team, and there truly isn't when it comes to these type of situations. When you have kids or who you're trying to overcome these issues with and for, and you want to see them grow and you be part of their life.
To me, I had the whole city of Pittsburgh and my family, and were there for me by my side, but just also the support and the prayers that I've gotten, and just feeling the support. It might not even be there, but just the prayers and people just want to see you healthy. Sometimes that just uplifts you also.
I always say I'm a miracle of prayer in modern medicine,
Can you please tell me about your setbacks?
With having esophageal cancer and the setbacks that kind of come from the side effects of the radiation and the chemo, kind of started out initially, woke up one morning, I had the gout. 3 weeks later, wake up again, I got shingles. And every time I would go in, it was the same type of situation. That this is a possible side effect. We don't all often see it. Of course, I didn't want to miss out on anything. At that point, having found out that I now need 4 heart bypasses after having a stress test prior to surgery, to have to go through that. After having the 4 heart bypasses, then going in for the esophageal resection, thought everything was fine, got home, and my daughter had been waiting patiently for nearly a year for me to be able to pick her up again. And they had taken the feeding tube out, and they said, you can lift now 35, 40 pounds. As soon as I got that okay, she was excited to have me pick her up. I pick her up, and immediately I had just this pain in my back. I felt a pop. It just brought me to my knees. And due to the severe amount of radiation on my esophagus, it softened the vertebrae in my back. Two of my vertebrae collapsed. So then I had to have another surgery after all those to repair my back. And they said, again, that's just another side effect of the radiation and the chemo.
You've been through a lot. So you would say it was your daughter that kept you going this whole time?
She was. When I went in the hospital first time, she gave me this little Mickey Mouse that she always took to bed with her. And she says, this will keep you safe. We used to always tell her that when we went on plane rides and when we would go on vacation. You know, take your stuffed animals, they'll keep you safe. I would always end up giving Mickey a kiss goodnight. And my roommate the one time said, well, you really like that Mickey. And my daughter was my inspiration she was 3 when I was initially diagnosed. She turned 4 shortly thereafter. I just couldn't see having her grow up without me and having missed that. And that was my inspiration every day, was to whatever it takes, whatever I need to do, whatever chemistry they got to put in me, I'm all in. It's just the perseverance to get through it.
I can say the same thing about my children. Every day I look at them and I just truly blessed to have them. And I know how much I want to be impactful to their lives. I know I have to keep pushing just to make sure that they know that their father is here for them no matter what. So Joe, why are we in the golf locker room?
The one saving grace that, that kind of kept my sanity at times was being able to go around, and I had a putting mat in my basement, in my game room, and fortunately we have like 5 acres of ground that I was able to do some chipping around by the house and hit some easy shots just to kind of break up the monotony of the day and kind of take your mind off of things. There's not a whole lot on afternoon television, to say the least. So the golf channel was my saving grace. So then after, I get out, and I kind of felt like I was still active. That's a big part of just trying to get that perseverance and, like I said, trying to be goal setting and saying, okay, well, I want to go out and hit 10 balls today. It doesn't sound like a lot, but it just takes so much out of you. Hit them, then go and walk. And it gave me some exercise, got the blood moving again. Kind of felt like I was able to accomplish something, what I was looking for, and keep my swing in. I was a coach for the First Tee here in Pittsburgh, coach for the PGA Junior League at my daughter's on. We were fortunate to come in first place this year. It was exciting. It's a team event. That's always been something. She had been a competitive dancer, and her mom was a dancer. She did extremely well at that. As things progressed, her ability in golf kind of surpassed her dancing from the aspect that she was able to achieve things beyond her years. It's been exciting to be able to still be here and see that progression. Golf's always been one of those things for me in business. As you know, I have you 4 hours on the golf course that we don't have 4 hours in the office. Yeah. But if we got on the course, I got your attention for 4 hours. It's been the same way with her. It's kind of our time. You learn a lot from the skills of learning how to drive the ball, putt the ball, chip the ball, and then the mental game that you kind of mess with them a little bit on when they're putting or whatnot, kind of break your concentration a little bit. You have to call penalties on yourself. So she's learned a lot, and I think it's a game for life. It keeps me inspired and seeing her grow with the game, and hopefully it'll be something that she can do for the rest of her life.
So golf helped you mentally overcome what you were dealing with, but also helped you grow your relationship with your daughter?
Right. It's a mental game by all means. Just trying to keep focused and give you something to do. Sitting in front of the television set after you get progressed so far along with the chemo, and it keeps giving you limited ability to do different things. And you kind of get stuck at home for a period of time during your rehabilitation. And part of my rehabilitation was going to physical therapy, getting on the treadmill. I found out the elliptical was my nemesis. Yeah. They kind of started you out on time. Do 3 minutes on this, and I thought, well, 3 minutes, that's no big deal. Yeah. Until you get on that thing. It's a workout. The stair climber, all those different.
I hated that when I was in college. That was punishment for us.
Oh, yeah.
So I already know just trying to do it as rehab probably was horrible. I know it definitely does wonders for you.
It does. From a cardiac standpoint, it gets your heart rolling, without a doubt, and beating and moving forward. And it was a great progression. And those were the kind of things that I got. It kept me motivated when I was down to 98 pounds. I'm about 130 or so now. Been a great stride. Never thought that, when they said, hey, you have to eat, I'm like, I'm all in there, Just those little things that you take for granted. Even coming off of a feeding tube after being on for a year, my wife would pack me snacks and a lunch to take with me in the car. And when I'd get home, she'd check my bag and she's like, you ate 2 things. All day. Really? It's hard to believe, but you forget. You just forget to eat. You haven't done it for so long.
So you have to rehab your body, even your mind, even your diet.
Just learning to eat again.
Yeah, because you're so used to eating a certain way for a year.
Right.
So now you have to actually start eating whole meals again. Truly been a mental game for you after the surgery.
Right. Starting out with, you couldn't just jump back into whole foods. You had to kind of start out with soft foods and kind of move your way up get your digestive system back in order. It was a progression again, and there was all those little goals, like you say, each day that just the perseverance of saying, okay, I'm going to do this today. What your diet is, this is what I need to eat today. This is what I want to do for physical therapy today. I just hope that it gives people hope that you have to look at the short-term goals. You're not going to get well overnight, but it will happen. The light at the end of the tunnel isn't always a freight train. Sometimes it is the light of a new day. That's kind of the way I looked at it. I needed to look forward and see that whatever the day brings, I was happy when I woke up in the morning.
So are you back to doing the things that you always want to do?
We are very fortunate that my wife and I were able to start our own small business. We started Still City Lubricants and Supply here about 6 years ago. It's been growing and very prosperous. We've been very fortunate that I had been in for almost 30 years and my wife had always been there with me along that progression as well. So we were kind of familiar with it, had a good customer base of customers in our Pittsburgh market that we knew, and they've been very attentive to come on board with us. It's been a goal that we both always wanted to achieve, and we've been fortunate enough to be able to do that. We're excited about that every day.
So what are some of the goals that you have for the future?
I would love to have it grow to the point that it would be something that I could leave to my daughter and have her take over the business someday. She currently helps with the paperwork side, the bookkeeping, the filing. So she's kind of learning the business. She goes out on occasion and does deliveries. That's something that we've been kind of moving towards as a long-term goal. Of course, she'll tell you she would rather be on the LPGA tour, and I hope that is the case someday. We'd love to see her on TV, and hopefully she'll be signing autographs like you someday.
Hey, maybe. How do you feel this experience changed you?
It's been a life-changing experience. It started out in 2010, now it's 2020. I've been fortunate enough to be cancer-free now for going on 9 years. You always hope and pray that shoe's not going to drop. Take a look at every day as a new day, and I'm going to make the best of every day because you just never know what's going to happen tomorrow. And you can't worry about it because you can't change it. And you just have to persevere and push through. Have the hope that everything works out well, and I've been a positive person by nature that if you don't worry about it, it's mind over matter. If you don't mind, it doesn't matter, type situation. I'd go through that, going through chemo, you have your bad days, say, well, hey, it'll be better tomorrow, and forget about today.
I'm Ryan Shazier. I want to thank you for listening to my 50 Phenoms podcast. Follow along with me by visiting upmc.me/50phenoms. Sign up to receive our emails and text alerts too.